No.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to be in the audience.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know how many chairs this be.
Let's kick off the meeting of the Real Estate Subcommittee today. A little roll call. Kathy Hinkman.
Here.
Melanie Parma.
Here.
And Matt Schuler's here as well. And we'll get started with our first item on the agenda, which is consideration with possible action on a request for proposals for redevelopment of the Adams Street lot located on the 200 block of North Adams Street, so very close to us. And we've got, I think, two developers here today to talk to us about their proposals and answer questions as regard to their proposals as well. We have gone through a very scientific process to determine who will go first and who will go second. And my understanding is that very secretive and highly scientific process that T. Wall will go first. And so if you'd like to, I suppose we have to open up the agenda.
On the floor.
Open the floor.
Yep, so I think, and just kind of in context of things, and just so the proposers understand, the way this has been presented is that for the real estate subcommittee gathered here today, this is a chance to gather additional information over and above what was submitted in the proposals. I think it's a good opportunity to kind of check the context, the scoring criteria that was presented. Also have an opportunity to ask the developers some questions. I think lead staff went through and came up with a few additional questions that, look, based on these proposals, we'd like to maybe further discuss. Gather that information here today while we have the applicants here, and then take that information and likely reconvene. We'll set up a meeting time probably for next week, to then meet and make a recommendation to the full RDA to have on their agenda at the October 9th meeting. So with that, I think can disappear. I sent out a proposal or schedule for the applicants. We'd like to have kind of a 15-minute presentation up front, and then maybe about a half an hour for questions. If there's anything else, look, we always run long on these things. But we like to keep each presentation or each developer to about an hour. And so each developer will have about an hour to engage in this process. And then if we want to have any discussion afterwards, we can do that. But I think, again, the goal was to come back, unless you want to make a recommendation today, the goal is to come back and make a recommendation to the RDA. Have this committee meet next week, make a recommendation to the RDA, then who would, short, probably move forward with a planning action, work on a development agreement for construction of one of these projects. So, with that, yeah.
With that, then I would take a motion to open up the meeting.
So moved.
Have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Melanie. We're in trouble. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, meeting's open. And Terrence, if you'd like to take the floor and explain to us the concept, that'd be great.
Let's sit down with you.
Thank you.
I'm Terrence Wall, T. Wall Enterprises, the developer of City Deck Landing, right over here, downtown. We kind of pioneered the new residential housing downtown. Took a big risk in developing that property. Overcame a lot of challenges, and it's been very successful for us. It's been 100% or near 100% full on the residential side. Commercial side's a little more difficult, as you know, in downtown in terms of leasing. But it's been quite successful, and people really enjoy living there. We have a lot of people, a lot of diversity of people, business people, retirees, young people, older people. So it's a wide mix of people, wide mix of incomes, et cetera. The property brought $10 million of disposable income to downtown to support the downtown retail and restaurants, which I think has been very helpful. So we've learned a lot from that, and we've got the experience under our belt of doing that. We'd love to do another property. I'd always promised the city that if we did the first one, we'd like to do a second one. That helps us with management economies of scale. So we're proposing a multi-phased development, 250 units, about 10,000 square feet or so retail, appropriate amount of parking, it's about 200 public and 274 private parking. But as you can see with our proposal, my whole philosophy coming into this is really what is the real purpose of the RDA doing another, going after another building for downtown? And that purpose to me is to really kick off a town square. It's to really do something that is dramatic, that attracts more people to downtown, provides a place for events, etc. Obviously, City Deck itself has been tremendously successful with all of your events. This could be leveraged off of that, and the two can work together. The town squares that have been developed around different cities bring literally hundreds of millions of dollars of additional patronage into the downtown. Hundreds of thousands of people will come to events there throughout the year. So to me, it's not just about building a building by itself in isolation. It's about really leveraging another building to build a town square that really caps off downtown. And why is that important? Well, obviously you're competing as a city with other cities, but you're also now competing, right, with Titletown, Lambeau Field. You go out there, you see their football field, the ice rink. I don't know, I haven't had a chance to use the sledding hill. Enjoyed the football field. Is it? Okay, good. So, that's competition for downtown, let's face it, and so we need to do something really special, something that really knocked the socks off people throughout the entire, not just the metro area, but, multiple counties, the entire region, to draw people in for events. And that would be, a new town square in cooperation with using the land that Trevor Foods has, is come up with something that includes, amphitheater, places for vendors, for the art fair, different events, as well as just a passive place when the events are not being held for the public to be able to come and enjoy and use and attract people here. It doesn't have to be exactly this plan. That's just a concept of one idea. Obviously, you have to decide what it would be. Underneath that would be public parking. The advantage of our parking, not only under our building, but under the town squares, is a single level. As you know, in downtown, you get a high water table, and you can also discover lots of interesting, varied things can be found in downtown sites, whether they be train cars or whatever, we've run into that. And so trying to stay out of the water table, I think, is very important, to keep it to one level, parking underground. Our proposal also doesn't overwhelm the downtown. It's very, very important, especially since we own a property downtown, and we do this in other communities as well. It's very important to limit the amount of units we put online in one season, one leasing season. Downtown can only handle about 65 to 75 units per leasing season, new units coming online. More than that results in overbuilding until they can be absorbed over a longer period of time. And once you do that, once you float into the next season, you start discounting, you have free rent, and that destroys values. It destroys the assessed values. Now, why is that important to you? It's not just about private property owners. It's important to you because it destroys the value of the TID. And it's important that the TID value be maintained. Why? Because if it's not, then the taxpayers come in to bail it out. That's what's going to happen. And some communities have had to do that. The taxpayers had to come in. So it's important to develop something that can be done in phases. We'll do this over 4 phases. It could be 4 years or it could be 8 years, depends on demand, right? We can do it at a wood frame stick built. That's very important to know that, because the tariffs that have gone in place have really affected steel and some other material components significantly. To give you an idea, we can build this building for less than half the cost of a high-rise building. In downtown Madison, I can just give you an example. There was a developer from out of town, proposed a building. They're looking at costs over $300,000 a unit for a high-rise, whereas we can build this for less than half of that. And we can phase it in appropriately. We've also, I think, enhanced the streets, Cherry Street in particular. When you're sitting on the site, you're kind of right now, you're looking at you're in a canyon, right? You've got Cherry Street ramp, you've got the other tall buildings in Washington, taller buildings over here in the new hotel, So how do we get around that? Because what really made Metro and also City of Deck Landing successful was the river. So we're not on the river, we don't have the river views. How do you make it successful? You create the town square, and you create an amenity. But look at Cherry Street also, we've developed some walk-up units. So we made it very pedestrian, very, low-key compared to the facade of the Cherry Street ramp. And we also created 2 beautiful courtyards that flow out into the town square. So they become connected, they become one. One is public, one's private, but our residents can, mingle between the two, and all of our residents will support the town square, right? They will patronize the vendors and the events, et cetera, there. Within those 2 courtyards, the public can see the amenity package, swimming pool, hot tub, grilling stations. We've won awards for our courtyard in the Veritas Village development. You can look online on our website, downtown Madison. Very similar to this. 4 stories with a beautiful courtyard in the middle. So it's a very economical, highly feasible project. We don't be coming back to you later saying, well, costs are too high, cost of steel is too high. We brought 2 new units online. This is a project that's designed to be very feasible. We can pull this off. As you know, there's tremendous uncertainty right now in the economy. Things are going great, but interest rates are going up, and material pricing, labor pricing, construction costs are skyrocketing. And we're seeing significant increases, 30-40% increase notices from subcontractors. So we have to build something that's economical, but this is also luxurious. It's a luxury product, it's a high end. Because the costs of construction are high, we're going to have to get higher rents. We're projecting rents at about 5% over what we're obtaining right now, so we know this is feasible, it'll work, we can get those rents. We did obtain the highest rents in downtown ever with City Deck Landing. We broke new levels. And the key is always getting the appraisal. It's very difficult to get an appraiser to, what do? They look at comps, and they don't just look at downtown, they look throughout the whole community. And where are the rent comps? They're low. So it's very difficult, and that's where you get into TIF, low-cost land, and that helps bridge some of that gap. But if you do something too big, too costly, the gap can't be bridged. So that's why we designed this to fit right within the box that is feasible right now, and will be successful long-term. So I'll just kind of leave it at that, and be happy to walk through your questions and talk about anything else that you'd like to go through. But I'm very excited about the attraction that this could create in terms of other value, other development, that would create even more value for downtown. It could really help downtown redevelop some of the older buildings, some of the unfortunate 1970 style buildings that, like the State Building with no windows. Wouldn't it be great to see some of those redeveloped? You have some beautiful classic buildings here that are historic, they're fantastic, keep those, and then improve upon that with some new buildings, and hopefully redevelopment some of the concrete buildings that were done in the 60s and the 70s, and then you really, downtown's really taken off. So we're invested here. I have a house here. John's fiance's wife's from here. His family's from here. My construction guy's family's from up here. My wife's family's from here. We're here almost every other weekend, plus during the week. So we're heavily invested. We'd love to do another development and continue the success of the first one.
Questions? I'll certainly start. So on the lot that we're currently talking about here in the RFP, is it A1 and A2 that fit on that lot?
So the, basically Schreiber's right here, right in here, and then this is the Bay Lake building, and then this is the, if you line up the streets here.
Okay.
So Bay Lake building stops right about in here. I'm not sure exact line, but, and then these would be the entrances. So one entrance here to underground parking for the private, one into the public. And it's a single-story garage, so it's really easy. You can charge for that just like you charge for on-street parking, and that can be paid for through a parking utility, bonded, and then covered through the rates that are charged to an app, just like we do now.
So is it a raised parking, or is it Actually,
It's below grade.
It's below grade.
Right. So that it's very important, I think, to have that town square at grade, because when you're walking along downtown, you want to be able to see that and say, I want to go there.
Right.
You want to be able to go from there into the city deck, right, through the, I'll call it the tunnel. But walk over to the city deck and have that pedestrian linkage. So you don't want to have anything built up that creates concrete walls that also make it hard for handicap accessibility, and also visually, you're creating a barrier.
If this is the Hotel North End right here,
Mhm.
then the Bay Lake building
Yeah.
would go this far.
Yeah, it sits in that brown.
So the Bay Lake stays there, goes to
Yeah,
that one.
yeah. And also, by taking out the Bay Lake building, there are tenants in there, right? They could be relocated to other empty space. There is quite a bit of office space available in vacancy in downtown. So it would help you fill up the other space in downtown. This would be a great synergy also for the new Foxconn, incubator. It's really, the combination of these things is really going to make Green Bay and downtown take off and really compete, especially against Titletown.
So the proposal does not include the cost of tearing down the building, correct?
No. We presume that would be, I recommend that that be handled through TIF. And again, the core could be done through a parking utility. If you have a parking utility set up, you charge for the parking underground, for the public parking, and then those rates could also cover the cost. So the improvements here, everything above, could be considered part of that cost of constructing the parking underground. Because it's the deck of the parking that's supporting the plaza, right?
And you talk about 4 phases. So the first phase, both parking garages would be there?
Well, whatever you wish. We could either build the parking for the public, and do this, as long as it's funded and everything, or the city can just do it, right? And then we could also just focus on our part. The phasing here is quite flexible. We probably will start maybe back here and work this way. We'd like to keep it in chunks that are manageable. The retail is over here. That's why a lower roof line here steps back. Probably the best scenario would be to do that last, because that way I have all of this built and occupied, so I have hundreds, 250 units could result in easily 325 or 350 residents, right? So I'd have all of that disposable income to help support the retail and attract retail to that location. What we don't want to do is overwhelm, the retail in downtown. We don't want to destroy the value of what you have already. Retail, there's tons of vacancies before, right? When the mall was torn down where my mother-in-law worked, there's tons of vacancies. And only recently, if you notice, it's filled up. So really full, it's almost full, And so let's keep that going, let's not train wreck that by throwing a bunch of retail in the market all at once and having more vacancy. Let's add the demand first, which in the meantime will support the retail that's out there. Then when we bring our retail on, we've got that additional disposable income to support it and attract good retailers, right? Or restaurants, right?
Is your proposal contingent on Bay Lake building being gone?
Yes. I think the value that the town square really brings to the table is critically important for the success of this. It'd be hard to develop a 3 or 4 store building and attract the income levels and the people to those buildings without some amenity, right? Some view. If you're just staring at the parking
No, I
ramp,
agree.
it's hard to attract people, and I know we're intimate knowledge and leasing and what the demand is by people and what they want and expect in downtown. And as I told, the city, Kevin, the reason why City Deck was successful was because of the river. City Deck Landing was there. We were able to offer that amenity. And if you were you there for the 4th of July, the fireworks and everything. And, our building was really integral to that whole event. Thousands, tens of thousands, maybe 50,000 people probably walked around our building, as they went from the bridge to City Deck. And so, we developed that, right, in conjunction with the city, that pedestrian linkage. And it's key to have that kind of amenity to attract people to downtown. You can't just assume high rents and then put them in a canyon and think that they're going to be attracted to pay a high rent. No. you might have a lower rent or lower, but then if you have a lower rent, you can't support the high construction costs. So it's all a formula that has to work. And it's tricky nowadays.
And these are all apartments, no condos?
Correct. And the reason for that is, the other thing is, the retail is not so overwhelming for the development. So if we can stick under, 5% or even 10% of the retail component to the residential component, the bankers, the lenders will allow us to finance it as a single type of project, so multifamily. Okay, they're going to kind of ignore the retail as being a low risk, right? As soon as you start getting in too high a percentage of some use other than the multifamily, now you're mixed use. Okay, that eliminates a whole bunch of lenders. It leaves you to a very small niche lenders who are willing to do mixed use. Very complicated for them to understand and underwrite, and it's also complicated for the appraisers to understand and underwrite. But more importantly, with condos in particular, the reason why we haven't proposed condos, and we've been asked to do condos in many locations, in many communities, and I have to be honest and just say that, since the Great Recession, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the rules all change, right? So in order to get the end user to get financing, the HOA, the condo association, et cetera, has to be turned over. Effectively, you have to have pre-sold about 80 to 85% of the units. Well, good luck, unless you're a 4-unit condo. It's really impossible to pre-sell dozens and dozens and dozens of condo units in order to comply with that rule so that the end buyer, so what does that leave you? The end buyer has to have all cash. Well, how many people have all cash to pay for a high-end condo? Also, the lenders who are available to finance the construction of condos, very small group, and that has to do with the fact that they can't recycle that loan, right? They can't get rid of it. They got to hold it in-house. It's a different bucket they're in. There's a different risk category assigned to it by the regulators. So it's very, very few lenders will. In fact, I don't even know any lender right now, not one that I can find, will finance condos. And since the end user has to pay cash, since the bank would have to hold that loan in-house if they finance it, see what banks like to do, right? If they finance your house, what do? Bam, they sell that off, right? To Fannie or Freddie, and it's packaged in a bond pool, and boom, it's out into the market. So they recycle their capital, they got their fees, and next, now they do the loan to you, and then the loan to you, and that's how the world works. It keeps going and works. And the minute they have to hold that loan in-house, now that capital's tied up. So they don't want to finance condo buyers out of condos because they have to hold the loan in-house. And then that applies a different set of regulations. So it's a real mess right now. Maybe those regulations will change someday. Not right now. And there's a lot of developers, to be honest with you, out there don't understand those regulations, even in Madison, where, some of the developers are very sophisticated. They don't get that. When you sell condos, you have to pay income tax as a dealer on every single sale. So you're underwater on every sale until you get to the profit point, your last 10 to 15% of your cash flow. So you're literally writing a check to the IRS. You're in the hole because you have to pay most of your money to the bank to pay off the mortgage on the construction. Then you pay the IRS based on every sale with capitalized costs. So you're creating a higher income on paper for which you're paying taxes on, which you are what's putting you in the hole. So now you're really in trouble financially until the very end. So that's why we can't do or won't do condos right now. It's just very difficult. Multifamily, there's a lot of lenders available for that. When we built City Deck, quite honestly, ran into a local bias by the banks. I had to finance it outside the city of Green Bay because the banks here had a local bias. I think we've broken that now, right? We've gotten some of the local banks to believe in it and realize that you can build multifamily downtown. You can charge higher rents, and it can be successful. And I think we have one vice president of every banking group residing in our development today, along with like 4 sportscasters and Packers, 3 or 4 Packers officials, and we have a bunch of different retirees. Yes, I think we've been successful in changing that attitude with the bankers here in Green Bay.
So can you speak to your design? You have a nice massing there. You talked about stick-built construction, but from a cladding and fenestration perspective.
Sure.
And then maybe along with that, talk about your team that you built.
Sure. So in terms of the architecture, we deliberately did not put any specific architecture on this because we'd like to do that as we did with City Deck. We'd like to do that in conjunction with you and the city in the community. What is the appropriate architecture? Some people like to come in with a very modern, a lot of architects want to win awards, right? They want to come in with a modern, something different. Sometimes that works, and that's fine. I would prefer not to come in with something that's, not what you want. I'd rather work with you to develop the architecture. In the case of City Deck, and it doesn't have to be the same, it can be different. We went with something very classical, historical, brick, punched opening windows. If you look at it, a lot of detailing, different three-dimensionality to the facade and the brick. Changed up the colors to try to bring down the massing and size of it. I think it really fits in very well with downtown. So we're open. We can work with you to develop the kind of architecture. We could try a couple different kind of ideas and talk with you about and show you what those might look like and see what you think would fit in. I think one key thing is, and it's hard to tell with this, massing back. It's hard to tell, but it's kind of wedding caking those end caps, right? So we bring down. So when you're on the town square, pretty much you're only seeing like 1 or 2 stories because the third and the fourth are pushed back. And we can have some nice balconies. I think it's important to activate those upper balconies facing the town square. If you had a concert, people could be up there with friends on large balconies overlooking that concert. And we'll have balconies around the different streets, Cherry and Washington, et cetera. Again, activating the street level, but not bringing a huge facade right up, against the street. That would be overwhelming and cast, long shadows, and it's got to fit in to me. And, Green Bay is the oldest city, right? It's historic. We got to make it fit in and look classic, so it'll last 250 years. Not 50 years. The state office building, we know, right? Probably that looks like it was built on, what was you, 60s or 70s?
Right.
Yeah. So, we don't want something like that that's going to be out of date in 50 years. We want something that's going to last the test of time. And the materials have to last. The other thing we do is a lot of things that we do that others don't do is we will insulate all the walls, including the bedroom walls. We build an extra foot height in the entire building, every floor, every unit, every hallway. The hallways are 6 feet wide, not 4. So we don't chintz. We put in a higher, more expensive HVAC. We put in more expensive cabinetry. We don't use the cheap Seiko cabinets. When you start getting out of the box, then you start cutting all these things. We believe in investing because we're going to own long term. We want to have the lowest possible operating costs. We're the pioneer in green and sustainable development in the state. Definitely Dane County, but probably the state also. The only developer to win an award from the governor for Governor Doyle for energy efficiency. We have worked with Focus on Energy. We actually teach Focus on Energy how to do all of these green and sustainable features, how to implement them. We have installed the largest solar array on any multifamily in the state of Wisconsin. We'd love to do, with the flat roof here, we'd love to do a solar array here on the roof. It will be invisible from the ground level because it's a low profile. Panels are literally, very thin nowadays. So we do a lot of green and sustainable. We want the architecture to be long-term sustainable. We want it to be very pedestrian level. We want to improve Cherry Street. It's nice. You've got the memorial for the Packers there, but I think we could really improve and add to that and make it a more pedestrian-friendly street. Provide better linkage with City Deck itself. Between this side where the hotel is. Hopefully that's going to be successful. And patrons of the hotel will walk through Town Square to City Deck. That's the idea.
So is the Lombardi or the Packer, it's on that corner?
Mhm.
So it's not part of the Town Square? Okay.
Right. But as we put some walk-up units there with some front yards, the same depth as the memorial, so that you can literally see it. If you're down here and you're looking down the street, you'll be able to see the memorial and just, I want to go there, I want to see that, I want to take a picture of that with me, standing in front of a selfie. It's all about creating those end vistas, right? You can see this way down there, I want to go there.
So Cherry Street, those are apartments that would be at the first level then?
Yes, we love doing
Space out
walkouts.
front?
Yes.
Okay.
We particularly target people with pets, so they can just walk out their front door instead of taking the pet through the hallways and the lobbies. And people love the walkouts, you know, just go right in and out of your own apartment. They also have a door into the hallway, you know. But they really are a big hit. And we can do some of those also on Adams, but it's not gonna, we didn't propose as big a yard there, you know.
Are those 1 or 2 bedroom, or is that
So we
up
have
for
a-
discussion?
Right, it's up for discussion. So we have a variety. We are proposing, based on our experience with City Deck, you know, a variety. We've got studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms. We could even do some 3 bedrooms. I don't think they're gonna be as big a demand for that, but some. You know, if this is a luxury, you know, high-end product, I think, you know, our units at City Deck are a little bit larger than we might do in a peripheral location. And what type of units are on the walkout? I don't think that'd be a studio, you know, they'd either be 1s or 2s, you know, maybe the corners are the 3s. You know. We'll come up with the exact unit mix. The unit mix will determine the exact unit count. You know, it might be 250, but it could be a little bit less or a little bit more, depending on the unit mix. You know, if you do more studios, you may end up having a few more units, or more 2 bedrooms, you may have a few more units. We include a mudroom in our 1s and our 2s, which nobody has, with full laundry in those mudrooms. We have a lot of units with dens, so you might have a 2-bedroom den, it's an extra room, maybe it's used as a guest bedroom for an adult child who's coming home, you know, to visit, or it's an office, you know. The retail is walkout, you know, on the street, with individual front facades, you know, individual signage for retail.
You had listed in here, and I wrote it down, that your parking is 1-to-1.
Yes.
What does that mean? Is that 1 parking space for each unit?
We have 274, and that can change when you get into the final construction documents, but that gives us, we love to have a ratio of about 1.1 to 1, which means, you know, if we have 250 units, we have 274 spaces, it's a little over 1.0, 1.1. That's like the perfect number. If we bring too many underground parking spaces online, you end up with people saying, well, I'll just wait to rent that, you know. If you have this little bit of a shortage, people, I want to rent that right away, right? So it's very important to have the exact right ratio, which is about 1-to-1 to 1.1 to 1. More or less gets you in trouble. So it's enough to cover the parking we need, right?
Of 1 person living in each.
Well, it's, yeah, plus you might want to have a few guest spots, right? And you might have some for the retailers during the day. There's going to be some shared parking going on, right? So those units during the workday, those parking spaces will probably be 80 to 85% right empty during the business day if they're working outside, right? And then we can use those spaces for the employees of the retail to park during the workday.
What do we do at Metro? Does anybody know? How many parking spot ratio? The ratio?
I think it's 1-to-1, 1 per unit. And I think they have some alternative spots in Cherry Street ramp. They can buy additional passes through.
Yeah, remember, not every, I want to, you know, if you build too much parking, it's like 35,000 a space, so it's very expensive, and then that jacks up your rents. So you got to remember, we're not, you know, millennials, latest survey shows, there's a big proportion of millennials don't even have a car. They'll use Uber. One of our
Right.
employees uses Uber, doesn't even have a car. He uses Uber to go to work, Uber to go home. It's less expensive than having a car and debt and insurance and gas. Some of them bike, some will walk to work in downtown. There's some of the retirees at City that we've seen. They're selling their house, they get rid of 1 car and they keep 1 car. So we don't need 2 cars when they're going everywhere together, you know, as retirees. So, you know, we don't need as many car spaces as we used to in this country. I know it's hard
I agree.
to overcome that, but. Yes, exactly. We have lots of bike parking also included. We'll have a bike station with tools, a bike wash, we'll have a dog wash, tons of amenities in here for the residents to use.
You also indicated they were going to be about 5% of the market. What is market now on a 1, 2,
So,
3 bedroom?
yeah, it varies by, John, do you have, you want to pull those out?
Yeah, I have what we have for City Deck and for Metro.
You know, for this property, we'll be pushing, you know, $900 to $1,000 for a studio, which is getting up there, you know. With City Deck, we've learned the exact right spot. You know, if you charge too much, you know, you're going to have vacancies. You don't want vacancies. You have to be very careful, you know, not to charge too much. So the you know, $879.90 is City Deck. You know, so we'll be about 5% over that. One bedroom, you know, $985 to $1,200. Two bedroom, $1,400 to $2,150. Three bedroom, $2,745. So we find through experience that you can get about a 3 to 5% increase, and that may change, in rents over a prior year. And I think that's, you know, we can push 5% because we have the clientele, you know, at City Deck, the clientele for this. You know, you have less resistance at the two-bedroom level than you do at the studio level. Studio levels can have more younger people working, you know, still in their careers, and they're a little more price sensitive than maybe the retired couple in the two-bedroom.
So let's talk numbers, cost, public assistance, what you're proposing, what you're thinking for the project.
Sure. So in terms of public assistance, with City Deck, because there's a large gap, you know, here in downtown, the construction costs in downtown are more, you have a high water table at the river, you're gonna run into surprises for sure, so you gotta plan for that and budget for that. You can't just go in like some other city where it's just a greenfield site and, you know, it's a farm field, and there's not gonna be any surprises. You really have to plan for that. So we're looking at, you know, at City Deck, we had 100% of the increment for TIF. So we'll calculate that, we'll run the formulas and the math on that when we get further down the line and determine what that number is, but it basically has to be self-supporting for the TIF, right? And then we had free land at City Deck, and I think that's an important component. And again, as far as the public parking, that can be financed through a parking utility district with the rates, you know, the paying, you know, for the users paying their parking rates, just like we do right now on the street. And I think that would be good, you know, in terms of the overall assistance, that would make the project work. If we start seeing, you know, much, you know, if you wanted us to go higher or something like that, you're going to see significantly higher costs. By the way, the break point is 4 and 5 stories. So you can do a 4-story wood frame building, or you can do a 5-story wood frame on a concrete podium, which gives you a 5-story building, okay? Once you go above that, that's where the building code kicks in, you know, bigger emergency stairs, you know, all the fire controls, the smoke controls, you go to steel and concrete, you know, that's where your costs are going to double. You know, you start building a multi-story ramp, you lose about 20% of the parking spaces just in ramping, you know, per level. That's a huge loss, you know, and then your cost of construction is very high. You know, in Madison, they have some high-rise, and you know, we got residents moving out of those buildings right across the street from us into our building, because they don't want to drive up a 5-story ramp and park in a public, basically what's like a public ramp. But they're parking in an open-air ramp, you know, and when you're an apartment resident, you know, 50% of our you know, our residents are female, according to our statistics, thousands of units that we have. You know, and it's, you know, security is very important to them, you know, so having a secured underground garage that's safe, it's not open to the elements, not open to people just walking in or driving in. It's really important to have that security, you know, heated. We have cameras and security all over every building that we do. Every exit, every elevator will have security cameras. Everything will be visible over the internet to our security company and vendor that we use. So having, you know, keeping it to one level of parking is, I think, really important. But that's what we need for public assistance. You know, we're going to do it in phases. I think that helps also with the feasibility of it. Once you start putting more than 75 units or so on the market in the season, then you've got to plan for, you know, free rent or lower rent or higher operating costs during the vacancies, right? When you have vacancies, you've got to pay the taxes. The landlord has to pay taxes, all the operating expenses for those units. You know, they're major expense, hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the units. But you have to carry those for however many months, you know, that you expect to absorb. So building this in phases is really important. Also, you know, it's important from the standpoint of trying to use local subs. Local subs up here tend to be smaller, right? You asked about the team. You know, if we start, you know, if we said we're gonna build all this at once, a gigantic project at once, you know, we're gonna have to get subs from Madison, Milwaukee, you know, large enough to handle this size, you know? Whereas if we can roll through, you know, a smaller plumber in, you know, in Green Bay can work on a 75-unit building, and when he's done with that, he goes on to our next 75-unit building, and it just roll right on through. It's very manageable. We don't have to necessarily go outside the city to get those people. As far as our team, we're looking at Jolie, JLA Architects. They're highly experienced in multifamily. They really listen to me, and they really understand the customer, because when you design a building, it's all about the customer. It's not about winning awards. It's not about what I want. It's about what the customer wants. And we keep track of that because we've got residents here in the city next that we write down what they say. You know, what do you like, what do you don't like. As far as a general contractor, we're keeping 3 on the hook. I think that's extremely important right now with the construction costs skyrocketing. My experience is that I found that if I start talking to only one, somehow the price creep ends up happening right at the end when you're about to sign the contract. So we're talking to Immel. They have the experience to be able to handle this. Stevens Construction, Immel's local, Stevens from Madison. You know, and possibly Myron's a bigger one, Union. You know, they're not going to do something smaller, but they could do a 75-unit building. So we'll keep talking to all 3, and we'll get pricing from all 3 to protect ourselves on costs and pricing to make sure that this project can move forward, that there's not any surprises at the end. And it'll be a gross maximum price contract, a GMP contract, so a guaranteed price. So we're, you know, to eliminate that risk, put that risk on the contractor. And then as far as the lender, we'll shop that around to different banks. We'll engage probably 3 banks for, in terms of getting the loan, because today you just don't know. Banks have regulations where they have buckets. And if their construction bucket is full, they can't make you a loan, no matter how much they want to, they can't under the regulations. So, you know, 1 minute, 1 year, you're talking to, you know, one bank and they can make you a loan, and then next year they can't make you a loan. So that whole relationship thing is gone. It's not about relationship, it's which bucket's available, you know, for them to make a loan from. So first bucket is a construction bucket, and then the second bucket is a multifamily bucket. And so you need to keep at least 3 banks on the hook until you can sign a loan commitment. And with interest rates going up, you know, we'll want to try to do that as quickly as possible, because rates are tending to go up 25 basis points every 4 months right now. The Fed just raised rates yesterday. So it's going to be important for us to lock in a lender as soon as possible.
How are you going to, what is your proposal as far as the arts requirement
Sure.
in the proposal?
Sure. I think we're like the only developer that has been buying art for our buildings for 35 years. We purchase art for the interior buildings, the common areas. If you'd like to see in City Deck, we spent probably more than 1% of our construction budget on art. If you go through, every floor has art in it. Sometimes we'll do public displays as a favor, so you saw that bull sculpture out there in the corner at City Deck for a while. That was just a favor to the artist, you know, for him to display that. If we have a place like here, we could do some public art outside, right? You could do it in the courtyard, or you could fund it as a, you know, you could almost create a really interesting, you know, public art. You know, you might have some where they're permanent installations, right? Or you could create an installation where artists can put it in for 6 months, and then the next artist comes along and puts it, you know, that one comes out, and a new one goes in. So it's dynamic, and it brings the public in. It gives artists a place to display their art, their sculptures. You know, maybe you help them out with installation costs or something like that. And then you'd have some that we permanent, we purchase, right, and install either on property or the linkage between the park and the development. Maybe, I think the Cherry Street corner, Annam Street is a great location for a sculpture there. And maybe also you can see right for TON and Washington Street, you know, so they're a good spot there for sculpture. So there'd be some places where you could do some outdoor art, and then art inside the building we'll do anyway. And then to have some kind of roving or changing, you know, art installation would be a great way to bring people downtown. You'd be amazed, you know, they did the Bucky on Parade, you know about that? You know, whether it's the sturgeons or the buckies or the, whatever, the cows, man, the Bucky on Parade brought people in from multiple states to Madison. It's incredible. So, doing something like that to kick off a art installation here, maybe that's the kickoff, you know what I mean? And then you do an art installation that has a roving component and a permanent component. And usually, if you have an art fair, I like to go to the art fair to buy a lot of the art for the interior. So I try to patronize local artists, and local art fairs.
So I think just so I'm clear, I guess, maybe you guys are, this project does not work if the Bay Lake Bake building isn't purchased and we don't do that public parking.
Yeah, I would be very concerned about having, a large building, the Bay Lake building sitting here is sort of like a Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
What are you staring at? Nothing, I mean, yes, we can create a development that's enclosed into ourselves, but is that what you want? Is that really what your goal is? Is just for us to put up another building, I think your goal as a city is to leverage this to create something really special for downtown. And, I've talked about taking out that building for a long time. Obviously, we have to be the city going in there and either doing it cooperatively or through condemnation or whatever, which has been done, in and around the state. It's not a particularly attractive building to me, but I would like to see something far better put in here that would really be something that would be of benefit to the greater community than just us building another building. Yeah, I can build another building anywhere, okay? I would like to do something that, since Helen's family's from Green Bay, I'd like to do something that's really special, that would stand the test of time. And I went and give an example. I purchased, a smaller case, it's only like a postage stamp size, I'm doing a development in downtown Middleton called the Middleton Center, and you can look at our website. And I went and I purchased 4 homes across the street. They were being rented out, being single-family homes. And it's probably a quarter of an acre or something, And I purchased those homes, I tore them down, and then I went to the city and said, hey, how about a town square? Because Middleton doesn't have a town square. It has no focal point. There's nothing to bring people together. And they're like, at first they weren't sure, but then they really started researching, and boy, did they jump on board and really grasp that. And I sold it to them with donating part of it, selling part of the property to them. And we just had the first event, the Jazz on the Plaza event, a huge success. People really loved it. They're in the process of planning that downtown plaza right now, and hopefully the improvements will be done this coming summer. I'm guessing there'll probably be 300 to 350 events there a year. There'll be a tremendous boost to downtown Middleton. And that's what I'd like to see here, is not just another building, but something really special.
And how many years are you proposing your project would take to build?
So each phase, the construction time frame is about 12 months. We can, as soon as we have approvals, we can break ground. I prefer to break ground in the fall and finish in March or February. That's about a 13, 14 month. That gives us a little leeway for the contractors, a buffer. So I figure about 1 phase per year. So we could go as fast as 4 years, or could be as long as 6 or 8 years. Depends on how fast the lease up is. So if we start and open in March, I'm going to be able to lease up through August. That's the leasing season. The calls drop off by 90% on September 1st, right? So September to December is like very little leasing. So we try to get all our leases to expire in like March to August. So I want to finish at the beginning of the leasing season when leasing goes like this, and then August 30th, September 1st, goes like that. So then I could start the next one, right after that in October. So if I'm full, do the next one in October, and just keep going right through. It could be 4 years. Now, if there's a recession or something, we might pause and take a year off. So I want to be upfront and honest about that. We want to make sure that this is successful so that it's not a financial burden on the TID, but rather a financial success on the TID. And in fact, usually what I find is when we develop our projects is that the original 100% increment that we estimated ends up being low, and there's some extra margin there. that's a free increment for the city to use to fund extra public improvements. So if you do the math right, there's usually that extra benefit, financial benefit to the TID, and you can use those funds for something else.
So is there an occupancy requirement that you have before you would even start phase two? I mean, along with other things that you would have to consider.
Sure. It wouldn't be the occupancy, but it'd be what I call leased. Leases, the leases are signed, but maybe not everyone moved in yet. Someone
Okay.
might sign a lease and move in a month. So also it's called the lease factor, and yeah, we'd want to be in that, 80 to 85% lease factor. And we should be, we should be, frankly, we should be 95% by August 31st, right, in terms of leasing. We leased right up at City Deck very quickly. So I would say that, getting to the 80% level, if we do things right, we open at the right timetable in March, February, we would be at the 95% or higher by August 31st, and then we'd start again in October. If you open, any project, even massive, if you open a building like in late August or September, October, you're going to sit mostly on detail. You start ramping up in March, April, May, June, July, and then there's extra carrying costs. So it's really, and then that delays you from building the next phase. So the nice thing is this is low risk to the city, low risk to the TID, lower risk to us than doing something, that's way outside the scale of the city, and do something here that is feasible, it can work in an environment right now that is, getting dicey. It's interest rates are going up, construction costs are skyrocketing, so the market is getting dicey. You just saw the stock market kind of take a dip down, it's getting worried. So we want to do something that we can do even if there's a recession, because I think there's enough demand. We were the first to build in the recession in 2010 in Greene County, so we don't mind building in a recession as long as there's enough demand. And we're building not too many units, which 75 units a year is the right number. So, we designed this project to kind of sustain the ups and downs, right? I don't think we want an empty elephant here, sitting here, that hurts the rest of downtown with a bunch of vacancy and destroys the values of downtown. That would be I think that would be very risky. It would hurt our City Deck, right? It could really jeopardize us over there at City Deck and the Metro too. So I think we have to be careful about that.
So Terrence, how much increment are you planning on bringing along each phase?
So, well, let's see, what did we apply for? So 75 units,
Doing full
it's
cost.
$10, $11 million, well, sometimes, in terms of TIF, if we were to back, let's say the increment, take it in. I mean, if you just took a ballpark number, let's just take 75 units times, 100, I used to be able to build them for 110,000 unit, now it's, bids are coming in at 150,000 unit, we'll probably be in 125,000 unit. But if you took a number like 120,000 unit and multiplied that by 75, that's a very conservative number. That's the
But
hard,
that's the cost, right?
Hard
Not the
cost,
increment.
that's the hard cost, yeah. So you've got soft costs, you've got, land value, et cetera. But that's a reasonable conservative number, right? Like I said, you don't want to push the envelope too much. You want to have some extra leftover increment for future public projects, once you see.
No,
the
but
numbers.
my point is, I'm trying to understand what we're bringing onto the tax rolls from an increment.
Oh,
And I
yes,
know
down the
that-
road.
Yes.
Yes, right.
That's what I'm trying to
Right.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so look, you're saying 125,000 a unit.
What's the math on the 250 times?
Times 75, right, 125,000 units built,
It's 100.
75 units,
Yeah.
so that's like 9.4 million
Yeah, so
times, let's just say
30%.
70% coming out. And again, it depends on the rents and the NOI and everything that we look at. Then that puts you in the ballpark of somewhere between 6 to 8, so.
So I'd
per
estimate
phase.
and the write-up, I estimate 30 million, but, it could be 40 million of tax value down the road. And, figure inflation costs, like inflation value, right? How much do you have left in your TID? How many years?
Downtown TID, there's at least a dozen years in there, and TID 13, there's a few more that's still 35, I think. So, and it's, I think, part of the discussion is to look at.
You might do an
what's-
overlay or something.
Right, it's the
Yeah.
time period in terms of what we'll be able to recoup that at.
Yeah, you could do an overlay TID or something like that.
And then I just have one last question.
Yes.
Do all the apartments have outdoor access?
Yes.
Meaning up, like a balcony or something?
Yes, we've always done that.
Great.
We don't have to, but we've
No, I
always done that.
do think that's important.
I think what's really important is these outdoor amenities in the courtyard. People, we find that they're not using their own balcony, they'll come down, because they like to interact, they like to,
Right.
they might just go and read a book, but then they're meeting people, seeing people, bringing people together in the inside, the community room, the club room, the fitness center, we'll have fitness on demand, it's a computerized system. That just brings everybody together, and we have events. It's not just about the physical space, it's about the programming. So we program events, so I have a manager. They'll still have at least 2 managers and at least 1 to 1.5 or 2 full-time maintenance people on site. So the on-site management, and they do programming, so they'll do events, movie and pizza on a Friday night, whatever. And so we'll do 1 or 2 events every month to bring people together. That creates synergies, but also gets them to stay longer, right? They'll reside there for 20 or 30 years, not 3. It's their home. This is their home. It's not an apartment. It's literally their home. So it has to act and look and behave like a house, not a home.
All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left. Wanted to ask if you could eliminate one requirement from the request proposals that was out there, what would it be and why would you eliminate it, or what would enable it? What would it enable you to do?
So we got a little creative with that. And we said instead of eliminating a requirement, we wanted to add a requirement.
Okay.
And add the requirement was take down the Bay Lake building.
Okay.
Bay Lake Bank building. Because I think that's the key to this whole thing. It's not just for us, but for any developer or development you choose to do. That is the key, to create everything you want to. It's your master plan, right? It's your future plan. Why not take advantage of, do this now? Because if you build our development and you don't do that now, when's it going to happen? And you could do a tip overlay or something, a new district to help you do that. Plus a parking utility, and we can help. Whatever you can do that.
Okay. And then one other question is, look, as RDA looks at redevelopment throughout the city, we've got other inventory. If not selected for this site, would this project work at another site in the downtown?
Well, it's a large development. I think this is really contingent on, the relationship with it in the town square. I don't see where else it can go, unless there could be another town square someplace else. It's integral, it's not just a building by itself that we can just plop down anywhere. We're not a cookie cutter developer. We don't just take a development that we've done elsewhere and make you think it's something unique and then plop it down. We've already done it 5 times elsewhere. No, this is unique to this site. I don't see where this could be done elsewhere. Would we like to do something on the river down the road? Sure. We've been kind of watching and looking for a number of years now. But no, I don't think this would work. Plus, to be honest, if you were to select a different developer, I think it would be foolish for us to come along and try to build something at the same time. And it's going to hurt that developer, it hurt us, it hurts you, it hurts the TID. It doesn't make any sense for us to do something. If we're not selected, it doesn't make any sense for us to do that. It's kind of like sour grapes. It actually could really hurt the TID financially.
Any other questions from? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for having us up. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your time.
Very much.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you, Terrence.
Thank you. Does anyone else need these? easels?
We're okay, Terrence, thank you.
It's never come here.
No, you guys have the video screen?
That
Yes.
would be
Yes,
like bank.
please.
Correct.
It's
We
right
can
up
further
there.
discuss.
It's already,
Hello.
Step ahead of me. It's Crystal. It might just be, you gotta turn it to the end, you gotta plug it in.
Okay, well.
Looks like you're Yep, well, and look, I think other things discussed after this, if there's some things you want us to research, just come back. Like that question, if that's.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't.
Answers that we don't have. Yeah.
I have a bag full.
He's got a cup.
I got it.
For your presentation this morning, 500 units, 0 vacancy.
Yeah, it'll, whatever's on your screen is gonna go.
Oh, the hearings that are going on right now.
The confidential emails.
Oh, I watched it.
We had a
Up until I got into
executive committee meeting. I said, to Lord, we went to small conference. That was, to me, that was, well, you weren't at the whole board meeting. It was the most energetic.
Right, I know.
Board meeting, just kind of the January.
Oh,
Sorry.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's coffee.
Cream.
So that.
Cream black, oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I think she
Board members, it was,
Still got some hands on you.
like.
No, I don't understand. I know what you're talking about. So that'll work.
But just everybody's fired up. You know, and really, still that economic development strategic plan. Because that we went into the advanced meeting.
Anyone else is here?
Why is this not posted? It is. Yeah, it's plugged in.
When she said in the chamber, we celebrate 1 year of implementation.
No.
Appeals are 14 to 16.
Question.
Afraid of his longies and my big ass.
I just figured.
I was like, I don't know if that's a term or not.
Help me pay for that.
And no one's ever
You know, and get the next one.
Did you break this?
Yes.
But that makes sense.
It's not hot enough. Let me try a different. It's in one.
Is this on?
It's on.
You know, we might request more meetings.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
And that's not going to give you time to get
It
set.
had the screen, yeah.
Where's the real?
Yeah.
I like that we just sit here and talk about. We support you.
Oh, no, that's the beauty of technology.
Economic.
You guys want me to make another pot?
St. North.
This will be good for me.
I think we're only another hour.
That went on. Just like, you know,
Hey, got
it's
it.
hard
Email.
to.
Did you
I'll
get
just
it?
plug it in.
I'll tell you, 10 minutes.
Sounds like great fun.
I love that.
Should we switch it to
There's
yours?
never.
It was on, because the TV was on.
Because I can literally drink coffee.
Is it, in the
I used to be able to.
No, I like to work
But I
out.
do, but I will.
That's exactly what happened with my dad, right? It was, hey, now I can't have it after dinner, now I can't have it, now I can't have it in the afternoon, you know, now it's one room. But that's so far.
I definitely have my fridge right now, my desk.
You can tell.
First.
It's like half a
I
I was afraid I'm not gonna have an apple tree when I'm hungry.
Is that an
But you could also.
I love the house, but I don't know anything about it. You should have another
probably wouldn't know.
Not.
You get 30 employees.
Should be, yeah, because that's, his screen should be popping up. Yeah.
You guys want to say?
Whatever is on protocol is on there.
Or if you want to.
TV?
And then I'm gonna do it at a time or something, but it was like, it doesn't say anything about the coffee, but that's how I was like, they're right, and now I want to go to Starbucks. I have not like specific Starbucks, but I would.
Should I try this, just so this is a little, I think it's
No.
the connection.
I think this is.
Or was that what? No?
Otherwise.
Oh, okay. Should I give it different?
Try HDMI too.
I just want to see if it's. Here, I'm gonna try it.
Switch it.
I want to
I got my
I just want to make sure it's not.
Come with your project.
Thank you, I apologize for the delay. I'm Paul Belcher with Base Companies. I'd like to introduce our team, and then we'll provide a project overview, and then we'll provide answers to the questions that were issued by Ken to the presenters. So got Philip Barson Construction. He'd be a partner in this project. Philip is from Romania, came to Wisconsin, lived in Seattle for approximately 15 years, comes to Green Bay with high energy and high vision for what our city can be, and I think that that's healthy. Mike Kralchek had a scheduling conflict today. Mike is one of the principals of C.D. Smith. I just don't want to understate how important C.D. Smith is to our team. They bring a lot of experience to what we're going to be proposing. Got Mike Higgins with the Keller Williams Real Estate Group and Josh Smits with Base Companies here to assist with any of the construction type questions that would come up by the committee. Philip, if you'd like to take over and give an overview of the project as proposed.
Sure, so we could just kick it right into the questions if you guys want to get through that first, and then we can get through some 3D renderings for the city. I think we've also discussed briefly with Ken and a few other people on this committee that, long-term Green Bay, what we thought could happen, and one of the other projects that we have right now will be the rail yard, and we're trying to develop that into mixed use, obviously much lower rise. We would probably look into going a little higher depending on what tenants we have. So let's just get right into it. Basically, the flexibility of this project is open. We want to, you guys asked clearly in the RFP, you wanted something distinct. One of the thoughts that came to mind for me was if you have a Wisconsin state tourist, what's like a little handouts that they give out, you want to see this building on that, right? So you want Green Bay to be the premier city of Wisconsin, pretty much. That's what we got, and that's kind of where we got the design, for. The historic part of this question would have been, I was looking at a map the other day, and I noticed that we have from 1931 to 2018, this downtown district has changed very slightly, not that much, which is fine, it's okay, but I'd say something like this, so urban, would really contrast the old and the new. And I think the Hotel Northland is a great way to, put it in better perspective when we're getting to this newer phase. And the millennials, we don't really want to walk too far. We don't want to have something that looks old. We don't want something that looks way too futuristic. But at the same time, we need something that'll, people talking about the project, they want to know where it is and what it is. And you bring this up, people are going to know, right? I discussed with some other people on this board that there is ways of keeping older buildings. It's very expensive, but we could go to it. Obviously on this lot, we don't have any older buildings. We just have the parking ramp. But some other things that I think maybe I should clarify would be that we're not contingent on knocking down the old building. That's further along. I'm assuming that would have been a question that would have been shot in there. That's pretty much what it is. We'll just keep going.
We do share the same vision as presenter in the city, adhering to the direction of the authenticity plan. We think that there's some embedded success factors there with the public areas.
Do you want to go over
Oh,
this?
and just to clarify, I'm assuming that everybody got the same 8 questions that you had sent out, so these were listed as expected to be answered, so we had this information in our original proposal, but a range of TIF would be 12 to 20%, which we believe is in line with other comparable projects, and the pay-as-you-go component, if there is, which we would hope there is, would go to maintain the public infrastructure, that this isn't meant to be the end game. One more facility here, we're going to be looking at how do we not just build parking, how do we improve the city's public works from this project and be able to extend into other ancillary developments on the outside of this project. So I think that would be a good utilization of the pay-as-you-go component of a TIF package. And then one of the questions was how much to purchase the property for, and I believe that's the assessed value on the parcel of $759,000.
Phasing and timeline, I think we were pretty clear on this. Obviously, a lot of this might, go sideways, if there's any holdups, market. I'd say the biggest really issue would be right there. Design approvals, negotiations, that would probably be the only thing that could hold any of this back. We, if this goes out, we're still okay on the second phase if we never get that through. I try to set up this deal where if we only do apartments and some retail and some office space, it would still happen. It could still go there, but I think we'd like to see the condos in there. We've already had interest in parties that want to, go along with that, but, yeah.
I think ownership-based residential is certainly in demand. We're experiencing some of that with our involvement at the rail yard, where we initially may have predicted a different demographic showing up, and we're getting a wide demographic showing up that are interested in living in downtown Green Bay. Jeff gave a presentation to the Chamber of Commerce Board this morning about the market rate residential dwellings, and that's great, 500 units, and they're 100% occupied, but I think long-term, some ownership-based product is good for the community.
Philip, can you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
You just said something about, okay, project going sideways if like the city were to hold up or delay some things, but then you said something about the market. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that in terms of correction or exposure, or like when that point would be in terms of like, all right, our market correcting, and so it may derail or delay, or just how would that?
It would probably be just a holdup. It's kind of like a hiccup. Yeah, okay. You get to the point where if the market can't support this, the biggest one would be the pre-sale and pre-lease. I got Mike here for the pre-sales. We're gonna have 3D walk tour, or like VR headset walkthrough. But people, if you got a big stock crash, people will still back out of that, even if it's written down. If you can't pay for it, you can't pay for it. So there's a lot of ways to go about that. Obviously, we're gonna have C.D. Smith backing a lot of this project, but if we get a hold up in the middle of phase 2, it would be between phase 1 and phase 2. So, if we have, the goal is to get the pre-sales and the pre-lease, and once that happens, then we'll kick in the project. So, right here we have the pre-sale and pre-lease notice on that. It's a few months before the actual phase 1 construction. So we want to get that to our, limit or minimum requirement, which is about 35% right now, and 35% of the budget. So if it's 60 million, we're trying to get up there.
Okay, thank you.
So our partnerships, I'd say Paul and I are going to be working closely. He's got lots of local connections. Me being here for only a year and a half, it's going to get to 2 years soon though. I have a big vision. Like my goal is much bigger than this project. I'll share this with you guys as I do a walk through the city on the 3D, the tour. It goes further than this project, so I would say that, CD Smith is involved right now with the rail yard. We're looking to see if they would be involved with a lot more. I just want to make it clear that this is not a short-term gig, this is a very long-term run, and we have a lot of involvement in this community, and I think CD Smith, Mike specifically made it really clear that they want to move up here for operations. So. This is actually a quote that Mike pointed out this morning. He just sent me an email briefly, and he's happy to put this in the agreement. They are willing to work with all the contractors here. As a matter of fact, right now they are on the rail yards.
Yes.
So these are some of the projects they've done. That's in La Crosse. That's the new city center. This is 777 in Milwaukee, 34-story high-rise residential. And then this would be the Hill Farms in Madison. Prices for the rents that I think we disclosed. We can't get too specific on that. If anything, if they might go higher, lower, I think that's pretty much stated in the proposal. Public cards, same thing. We've discussed in there, we're probably going to be working with the Public Cards Commission, and we'll get that one done. Yeah, no changes. The only thing would be the parking. One thing I want to point out, with the amount of parking in this area, like within a mile vicinity of the lot, we have a very hard time believing that we're going to need 121 spots. You got the ramp across the street, it's never full. Then you have the other ramps on the northeast corner by Schreiber, those are never full. That would be one thing we would want to change. We're more than happy to provide it, but you got to understand where we're coming from, I think the city's at the point where we're taking away flat land and we're starting to develop, get higher density, but that comes with a price. You can't be parking, street level everywhere, so.
So you would want to take the parking out? Parking requirement out of the proposal?
The
Is that
parking
what you're saying?
requirement.
The public
adds
parking.
It
Okay.
adds a significant amount of cost to the proposal. We're seeing on a more national level some repurposing of parking garages already in more successful, dense urban settings. Now, we might not be there this year or next year, but we're certainly cognizant of the fact that parking garages are getting repurposed in lieu of Amazon package delivery areas, things like that, and the onset of autonomous vehicles when that happens as well.
I just don't remember. Was it 120 spots that was in the RFP?
121.
Yeah, I think RDA, in the initial proposal, said, there's like 121 spots there now. I think RDA said 100, and then council kicked it back up to 121.
Okay.
And that's what.
So replacing what's there.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're more than happy to go with
100 it
Absolutely.
says.
just later on. We could always add to, I mentioned something to Wendy, if you make an addition with the public arts, or you get a, I'll get this with the tour when I do the visual tour, but, if you get big city arts, culture, then it's pretty obvious. This is a block, you want to hold something like that, and you do need the space, so. Yeah, would we consider another site? Absolutely.
Thank you.
Let's get into the 3D, huh?
Well, just want to be cognizant of the time constraints.
Let's,
Any questions on those 8 base questions that were sent out by Ken?
yeah, as this is loading up, I guess we could take the questions.
How many apartments are there?
50. 50. So 50 apartment units and 90 condo units. That'll be flexible, obviously, if we can't fit it in the plans, if we have a lot of requests. We've already had requests for 3 bedrooms, and we didn't really think of that. Well, we did, but to really redo the floor plan, now you get into some more space.
So 140 total.
That's right.
So while it's loading, can you talk about your design team? Who did the design work?
Who did the design for the building, the exterior design? I did everything.
Okay.
I did the design, you know, I read you guys wanted something distinctive. From what I've done back in Seattle, from the people that we've worked with, it was always urban. You know, it's gotta be that new look. We can obviously change that if it's really too distinctive, but,
So I guess my question is even from, both from an aesthetic perspective, but just knowledge of the requirements to, you know, build down here and the structure that you're proposing. Construction type, material type, those sort of
Yeah,
things. Just something to talk about while you're loading
The
here.
code adherence has already been applied to the facility, and that's, CD Smith has partners, you know, has partnered with us, has very
vetting that.
capable folks in their architectural design department to supplement the design as it evolved. We actually scrapped a couple different designs that were presented along the way. Philip has a tremendous amount of time and effort into this, and we finally settled into the phase 1, phase 2, and then how do you know, position that in proximity to the Heritage Trail and the Bay Lake Bank Building, and, you know, and how do those phases work, and parking garage access. So we've been working and running, you know, kind of reviewing that with the architectural design department at CD Smith as well.
Does CD Smith have architects on staff?
They have lots of architects on staff.
they're usually
They're-
subbing it the work out, so they have, well, they have a 3D architect, like a visual, they have this new thing they just started, I think about 6 months ago, I was at their office. It's a VR thing where they walk people through the building, they're gonna be helping us with that. But they work with a lot of national architects. For the 777, they had a developer out of Houston, and.
Right, so CD Smith's a contractor or a construction manager. They're not an AE firm.
Correct. They still
just
have
wanna- I just wanna
architects.
make
They
it
have
clear for the
architects
rest of
in-house.
the team.
The architectural partner at the end of the day here would be an outsourced architectural firm.
Right, so you haven't engaged anyone yet?
Correct.
Okay.
Other than their architects
Their team.
on staff. Correct.
So, yeah, this is a little like gaming. So here's what we have that we, I guess, wanted to share. If it loads. Oops, I think I did something. For the long-term vision, I'd say what we would see for the Bay Lakes building is, obviously we want to knock it down, but in the authenticity plan, you guys mentioned you wanted to tie the Straggler Park to a larger park that extends to, what was that street? To the road, like right there. Yeah. So, for the second phase, one of the things that, you know, we could do would be either an office building, something that's not taller than this development by, you know, maybe like a 5-story or something. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about, but our goal is to redevelop this and to redevelop, obviously, a lot of the northeast side, or northwest, I'm sorry. One of the things that we noticed here was that this parking garage that I put down for some reason, this actually stands up a lot higher and casts a shadow over all of that, which is a big problem. When I put the first plan that I had, I actually had, here, let me stop this. Oops. So the first plan I had would have had an apartment building right here and an office building right here, both of which would have been about 14 floors. One of the questions that I might get, or if not now, I will get later, would be why go up so much? The reason behind that is if we don't go up and we just spread out, we're taking up the green space that everybody's talking about, right? And the other thing is density. When I did the market research for the entire nation, you got Houston, you got Austin, you got Atlanta, you got San Francisco, LA, Seattle. They're all going up. Everybody's going up, but San Francisco, LA, Seattle, they're starting to cap. So they're spread out. They can only go so far before, you know, tech firms, Amazon for example, they're moving out. They're adding another HQ, and I'm not sure which the city was, but that's the point here. We have to catch on to the trend where we have to start building up. And Green Bay being the oldest city in the state and really the third largest, my thing when I came from Seattle, I came here, I'd already made a commitment, and then I go downtown and I'm like, what? I mean, no offense. That was my reaction. I'm like, what? People talk about this. It's the number 3 most televised city in the nation when it comes to National Football League, right? You got, I think it's maybe the Patriots above us, and for some reason the Falcons is the right below us. I don't know why, but that's what we're missing here, right? This big opportunity to go big and to make a name, and here we're kind of sitting like, what are we doing, right? So I want to make sure that we all have the same goal, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's fine. But I think we do have the same goal, and I think that we're looking to go. We're not looking to scale 200 floors. We're only looking to do 15. Actually, I had a comparison in the Empire State Building, and it was massive. It was. I don't know if I can pull that up now, but no.
Not for the sunset.
No. But that's my vision, and I think working with Paul and working with C.D. Smith, they have a lot of experience in that. We could definitely do something like this. And to explain this a little more, we'd like to possibly expand further out. There's some lots here. The City Hall parking lot, for example, just here actually. It's empty. You could do something there. Obviously, it depends on contingencies. It's more of a vision now, but that's where we're at. And I think as a team, we'll report the team to do this.
There's some things that just aren't playing well here technology-wise today, so I apologize for that. But it's really, there's some nice components to the proposal. We're working with the Green Bay Theater Company right now with the Schauer and Schumacher building, and Philip went forth and said, hey, what if? What if we keep the facade of the Schauer and Schumacher building somewhere down the road and build up and say to the theater company, we're going to build you an arts and cultural center somewhere in the middle of our public plaza. That exists in a lot of communities. It's not in Green Bay, but it's certainly something that you can rally around and give your community something to be proud of and brag about and say, hey, come see what's going on in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So the scalability, I wish things could load quicker. We had the Empire State Building and the Sears Tower scaled next to a 15-story building is minimal.
There we go.
But it's
So, that's 16 floors. That was one of the original sketches I did. That would have been an office building. That's also 16 floors, and then we got those buildings. I don't know if you guys want to do tip on that, but I'm more than happy to do that.
some things we've had fun with the project.
Yeah, so over here, one of the things that's in downtown Seattle is the public arts, what's it called? I think Kevin would know this.
No pressure.
He used to be on the West Coast.
Along the
By the Space
coast?
Needle.
The arts trail, the arts part, sculpture part?
Yeah, that's it. So
Okay.
there's a building there that's kind of funky looking. It's a big deal. When you go to the Space Needle, everybody takes a picture there. It's a funky looking building. I just threw that down because it took me 5 minutes. So I put it down there and I figured, why not have like a arts building? Everybody comes here. It's more of a cultural thing. Obviously, it's more of a vision than it's, but in the long term, could be an office building, could be anything. That's how we see this block panning out. We don't want to go too high. You don't want to block the views. People are paying big bucks to stay here. And one of the other things I want to disclose, pricing, for clients that we're looking to hit. I think there's a lot of people here that have been waiting for something like this. People that want to live downtown and they didn't have I know the metro is up there, but if you compare that on a national scale, that's actually average. So to go a little higher than that, there's only one way to determine it. It would be the pre-sales. So we could, obviously keep that.
I think there's a lot of folks that aren't here yet that will be waiting for the product as well.
Yeah.
With all of the new successes that we've had introduced for our community with the STEM Innovation Center, Titletown Tech, and Foxconn, that's gonna continue to bring in high-quality jobs, hence folks that have the capacity to choose the quality of life they want.
So what is the average income that you're looking at to fill these 140?
About 75,000.
That's all?
Yeah.
So what is the cost for a two-bedroom condo in USA?
It ranges, it really ranges, because I'm gonna be honest, when I did the comps on this, we could go for a penthouse suite up there, it could be, I don't know, $2 million. Well, I was more comfortable with like 1.7, 1.6. But if we compare Milwaukee prices, which is way higher, it's actually about twice what rebate is now. Let's get back on rentals, they're renting a penthouse suite at $6,000 a month. You know, so I think my cap on that was like 3,500 or something like that for a rental here, which is half, but people pay that. So
For a penthouse?
this is for the rental. So
Okay.
it would still be a penthouse, but you're renting it. Right? So it's a little lower. Those would be for sale. Those are the condos. So
Right,
that's
and so what is your average, what do you think you're gonna be selling your
Average price?
condos for?
About 400,000, somewhere on there.
On page 24, we got something from 200 to about $460,000.
Our low, smaller units like studios, condos, condos, for example, I think I had a price in there for 200,000 on the low. We might actually go lower than that in the 160 range, because we can offer, 800 square feet for that. And the same with this. So these are actually starting, I think, lower than all of these buildings combined. It would start at like 730-ish. I can't remember what the number was, but we could do that, for a studio. So we're okay with that.
So then in the apartments, were you imagining a mix of studios in there?
In the apartments?
In the apartments? Yeah, and what was the rent on those?
Like I said, they start at about 7, do you have that? Yeah, 750. So for a studio, given it's 500 to 650, 700 square feet, yeah, about 750.
And how about on the one bedrooms?
I can't disclose that. That's it's a little rough when we get higher numbers, especially since we don't have floor plans and square footage. It ranges 750 to 2,000 or something.
So in your proposal, you went with a higher number, or you went with the condos versus the other developer, you were sitting here, so I'm not speaking on a turn, talked about the difference between doing condos and doing apartments. How does that affect the timeline? Because how many of those condos would you have to sell?
That depends on the cost of the project. So if let's say we kick this thing off in a year, and now we go from 60 to 70 million, it still has to be 30% of the cost. So whether we get that through TIF or through investors, or if we get that through pre-sales, well, right now, I'd say the pre-sale is the biggest one where we can hold the development, where we can get some money up front and say, if we do have somebody financing it, how are we gonna, when this is complete, how are we gonna be able to go in there and take the development with the down payment? So I'd say for the pre-sale, to explain the phase 1 and phase 2, the apartments, the reason I think the condos are really good, being a real estate agent, I'm actually also licensed as a real estate agent. I did the research on that. Basically, every condo in downtown sells within 2 months max. So that's the average. So I misspoke. Max, I think, is like 90 days, or no, a little longer than that. But that's what I've noticed. The condos are selling like hotcakes, and the issue is we don't have any higher quality condos. As for the apartments, those are also pre-leased. I think the last I spoke to the Metro representative, they said that they were, a year out? So we don't want to saturate the market too much because we are doing another development on the rail yard, which will have apartments. But yeah, I hope that answers your question somewhat.
The apartments would be phased as part of phase one, and
Right,
maybe there might be
that's-
some overlap of the condos as part of phase one, or just step it right into phase two. It all depends on what we get for pre-sales.
Right, because right now your apartments are on the phase one and the condos are on the phase two.
Correct.
So as long as you're on phasing, we talked a little bit about, one questions, what if phase one and, okay, something happens, phase two, does it still work on its own phase one? Or, in terms of your commitment then to, maybe not on that timeline, phase two?
I would say phase one goes more on, so you're asking if phase two would be feasible?
So let's just say I think projects, come in phases. You do phase one, and then something happens, and then phase two doesn't happen. Can phase one stand on its own?
Yes, yes,
The
it would.
answer to that is the phasing of the parking garage.
Okay.
Right.
That which would show up in, I think, the development agreement terms and conditions to say, how do we want to share in that risk or hedge that possibility because of the connectivity of the parking underneath both phase one and phase two.
Because you would park the whole parcel, more or less.
Correct.
To start, you're not gonna go back and dig up.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about the green space? You have listed 24,000 square feet of green space. Is that accessible to all tenants, or?
So I think what I disclosed in the proposal is that this would be accessible by tenants and residents. This would be restaurant, so it'd be more of a business. And this also would be offices. So whoever's in this office and that office would have access to that. So that's also private. So there's 3 levels of this. The only
Right.
public would be really the restaurant, so. And we also have the top, so when that's obviously all private.
So green space for the overall tenants is about 18,000. It wouldn't be, so the Bay Lake building, to really make this shine, Bay Lake's gotta go.
Both of these buildings will fit in there with the Bay Lake building there right now.
Right, but you have,
Sure.
we're
Long term,
removing
yeah.
all the green space, from downtown. Actually, it's cement right now, but.
I was just saying,
I was
I
gonna-
think we were green space.
Right.
We certainly would want to continue working together to achieve the end result of the authenticity plan.
And all of these have outdoor access, correct?
No, so for the apartments, most of them would, but again, that's so early in this that you can't really determine. If we go on the back side of the building, let me see if I can get out here. This design was supposed to be more of a modern, contemporary look, where you're really facing like the sunrise, or it reflects off of that. You guys mentioned, or I can't remember who mentioned this, but we didn't want to have too much reflect off of this, because now you got people that are uncomfortable, you got businesses over here on a much lower scale, they're not as high up. So this was supposed to be more of a flat facade. Obviously, you got some of that planned in there, but, around there, those would all have balconies. The apartments are pretty limited as well. I think in the updated rendering, I actually have balconies on all of these. So.
Can you bring up the image again that has Bay Lake there and how that works if that building were to stay?
This one right here?
Yeah. So is there physical space to to build that phase one with the Bay Lake building there?
There, yeah, yeah, so what I've done, I went in here and I shrunk, and I think I went back 25 feet all around the entire parcel. And I said, let's just go back 25, because you never know, we might have a setback here and there. So I already did that, I cut that out, and over here, I think I had like 50. So this actually would fit, oh, and the roads are a little wider than they really are, but, yeah, this whole thing would fit. We could make it bigger if you want.
And our construction partner, C.D. Smith, is well-versed in those situations.
Yeah, right,
Downtown
tight
Milwaukee type
construction. Yeah,
construction.
it just seems like a lot on
For
that
that,
small,
yeah.
parking lot space.
If Bay Lake Bank wasn't there, would you have laid out the building differently?
Yes. Yeah, I think I definitely would have. Well, the extension, if this were to be complete, you got the whole park, you could always do something that ties into this, design-wise, right? But I think what we're trying to, from my perspective, what we're trying to do is create like a distinctive downtown feel where when people go to Green Bay, it's not like they say, oh, I'm going to Door County. It's like, no, well, Green Bay is part of the state, Northeast, where you kind of incorporate the whole thing. I want people to think, I'm going to Green Bay, it's going to be fun. It's going to be kind of like Door County. It's an experience rather than just traveling for work or whatever it is. So something like this is definitely much more different than the bigger cities. But I'd say for a long-term goal, like a farmer's market or like a public market like Milwaukee, that would be something that could be, incorporated into the further planning on this.
So from a TIF perspective, you said a pay-as-you-go, correct?
Upfront
Upfront.
and pay as you go,
20%.
12 to 20.
12 to 20%.
Upfront.
And then that money would be used the ongoing would be used to maintain that building. Once the TIF runs out, then it's up to
The owners.
The 12 to 20% goes into the qualified public infrastructure up front. The pay-as-you-go portion on the presumption that the debt service and the life of the TIF yield something left in pay-as-you-go would go to maintain the public infrastructure that otherwise would have been a burden on public works.
And we talked about the last one being built with wood. Is this all steel and cement?
Concrete and steel, majority of the structure would be, yes. I mean, the bones of it would be definitely concrete and steel.
And the $60 million price tag, is that taking into how much inflation? I mean, is 60 million as of the date you were going to break ground, or is that $60 million today?
Based on our construction schedule, that dollar amount is out there.
Yes.
I mean, things are fluctuating on a regular basis right now.
That's why I'm wondering how much
Daily?
fluff you built into it. per
We
se,
put
not
some
fluff,
inflation
but-
in between now and the starting date of early next year.
Okay. Because
It's crazy. Josh prices stuff out every day, and I'm never happy. Every time he brings a new number, it's going up.
I mean, the building's beautiful.
I believe we're at about 225 square foot on the residential side. So we're still a little high up there on the cost. I think it was 225.
It's a good number.
Per unit, we're, I think, well over 200,000. But, being Josh and I construction background, we can work the numbers more limited, so.
Yeah. $103,000 square foot for the condos. So what were you averaging your condo size to be? 90? Those look like big condos.
I think we had some at 4,000 square feet. The penthouse suites and then the more average ones went from 800, I think the average was like 1,200 square feet. 12 to, I mean, well, we have very large penthouse suites, so, that throws everything off.
Okay.
And from what I studied here, in this market, you guys have some condos at about that size. They go from 800 to, they can top out at like 2,500 square feet, so.
No, I don't think so.
No, I think covered most everything on.
questions?
Yep. So if there's any closing statements?
Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank
Great
you.
spend the first time.
Thanks for all your work on this as well, and as well your interest in the city.
Yes, thank you.
All right, have a good day. Thank you. I hate 10 Good job, you guys. Thank you.
So here's, I think what we'd like to do.
Return to regular session.
Yeah, return regular.
We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to return to regular session.
And I'll second that.
First and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are back in regular order of business.
So I think the appropriate thing to do would be, went through, heard your presentations, had some discussion, got through some of the questions, I think from staff we brought up, or just further discussions, I think had good answers to that. With that, of course, every presentation raises more questions. Is there anything, in terms of process, I think, again, we set up today to be kind of information gathering, getting an opportunity to dive in deeper. We would like to have this committee meet again to make a recommendation. With that, is there anything else that you would like to see from staff in terms of bringing back any additional information to you before you make that recommendation?
So for me, there were a couple things.
Okay.
One is, have we had any conversations with Schreiber about, right, the first plan kind of showed this new town square and it merges in with what I believe is completely Schreiber's property.
Correct.
And so I don't know if there's been any conversations with them or not, but I certainly would hate for them to get the impression that there's an assumption being made, that we're just kind
Tie it together.
of using their land, or anything like that. So I think that would be a really good conversation to open up. The next would be, I have no clue. All projects for downtown and for that particular piece of property are enhanced and have a greater vision if Bay Lake Bank is not there. But once again, that's not ours. It is a private developer's property. I have no idea if we're all just, it's a pipe dream, for all I know. They might be sitting there saying, yes, you can have my building and that's $50 million. And we're gonna say, okay, thank you. And I think we would all say, great visions for these properties, but the visions get really, they're just not as exciting if that building continues to be there and how that town square would emerge. So I don't know, the practical reality of that is just really sitting there for me, in my mind, as we would try to think about making decisions on, eventual developers and development agreements and the property that's there. And that was a little bit of the reason for the question about, would you have faced that building differently if Bay Lake Bank building was not there?
Yeah, because it'd be interesting to see the proposals. One proposal was,
Assumed
assuming
it.
it would go.
Yep.
And then this proposal didn't assume that. And, you indicated you would, so I'd love to see that.
Yeah. And then the
To
third
know the details. Right?
proposal that had withdrawn, I think also had it not there as well. And I don't think anybody, the general sense in talking, hearing both of you, I think the vision's great.
Right, right. And I think even the RFP included the city piece that envisioned it gone, so I can see where they would logically jump to that conclusion.
Yes.
Well, and fair point. I mean, the authenticity plan states that. I think we all assume that, but maybe Schreiber or others, maybe just to be clear on the timetable or
Yep.
things. Again, I think we've talked here internally and with the RDA, maybe we didn't be having this conversation for another 5 years. But the market where it's at right now, I think the opportunity is ripe to do some type of development at this site, given the interest that we've had in it. And so it's kind of moving that forward. But again, I think to make the checkpoint on those two things about that particular piece and the cost of basically acquisition of the Bay Lake piece are two things that ultimately, would impact, obviously, negotiations and cost and, where we go. And look, I mean, for you, it may impact your recommendations is what I'm hearing. Okay. Okay. So with that, I mean, I don't know in terms of if you want to, adjourn and just hold this item until you meet again. And I guess we can talk about how long it's going to take us to get some of that information. Look, I think we want to keep moving along in respect for the two developers that were here. I mean, I don't want to string along
Right.
somebody for months.
Right.
But I think it's also appropriate for us to get the right information to make that decision in terms of moving forward.
Well, we're scheduled for Monday.
Scheduled for Monday,
For the next subcommittee meeting.
Okay. I guess,
If we wanted to make it before the
okay.
Is that at 1:30?
2:30.
So, if we want to make a decision for the October 9th, RDA meeting next week,
Maybe we just need to figure out how much it costs to take Bay Lake Bank.
all tomorrow.
3 days.
I didn't say they were easy questions.
Right.
Hey, I'll be honest, and I'm not sure what necessarily drives the next RDA meeting. From my vantage point, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, really hard to make a recommendation with that out there. Because, hey, I think quite frankly, we heard from one developer, we could do it with that building right there. The other one was kind of saying, don't. It's the whole purpose of why the building is laid out as it is and how it incorporates these two spaces together. As well as, and then, base your proposal, you're saying, well, if that building wasn't there, I might do this differently, which I think is a very fair comment and way to think about it. And that's why it's just, for me, it's the big question mark that needs some sort of resolution. Otherwise, I think it's really different projects that go forward on that space.
I would agree with you. Wholeheartedly on it.
Okay.
I think the RDA would too. Seeing.
So your questions are the cost of purchasing Bay Lake and a timeline for that, you're thinking? Or?
I think it's probably a combination really, but it's cost, timeline. Cost is going to have an implication on how we think about TIF. Because to some extent, right, we're not going to get it for free.
Right.
So we're going to have to
Right.
finance it somehow. I'm just stating the obvious, right?
Timing.
Hey, I tried.
You're a great negotiator, but, so to me, it just comes down to, then there's just the practical reality of financing. And I'm just not sure, I'm not sure how to consider the projects and the practical realities of financing, because if I also looked at these projects, right, the net cost per unit of housing added to downtown is really different. And I'm assuming that's going to come with very different TIF requests with a layer on there called, right, Bay Lake Bank is now ours and gone.
What do you mean by that? Different TIF requests?
Money, the amount of funding. Hey, I was just going to say,
Oh, okay, so
if there's a $60 million project and there's a $25 million project and there's a buying of the Bay Lake Bank, I think there's an incredibly different TIF request
Yes.
between those two.
Good point.
If I can just maybe put the developers on the spot for a second without breaking the rules. I mean, is there a time by which you would need a decision from us in terms of being able to move forward with something. I mean, I know you both have lots of projects in the queue. And again, I want to be respectful in terms of getting them the information they need to make the right decision, but I also want to be respectful of you that, okay, by this date, we kind of needed to go, in terms of, again, construction windows and leasing windows and all those types of things. But when you kind of need some decision from the RDA, like, look, this is where we'd like to go. We'd like to go with this proposal over this one. Yeah.
I would say that we're okay moving forward with the facility there. I think it would be appropriate to have a term or condition in the development agreement that obligates the city to continue moving towards that, the facility not being there. That would be a mutual agreement on that time frame. We would certainly have more public features out towards the Bay Lake Bank building if we knew for sure in 2 or 3 years it would be gone. I can put a little bit of color behind the acquisition of that building, because we've been down that path before, and partner in the upstairs, and a lot of that, you know, APAC, or, you know, they have, I forget who, Josh built it. It was, it's amazing, the hundreds and hundreds of miles of cabling and technology in that space. And Rob Sear was still the CEO of Bay Lake the last time we went down this path, and I know the number was $15 million, just for perspective. And that was because we saw the lease coming due. If the tenant has too much leverage with too much lease term, especially the upstairs tenant, the cost is gonna skyrocket because they know that they have to be made whole. The problem that we had as the developer was that we can't go to our tenant and say, we think you're going away, or they won't renew with us. And now we sit with a 70,000 square foot vacancy in the core of downtown. That was the dynamic that took place 2 lease renewals ago. Ironically, through it, I smiled a little bit at Wendy about public market. I got the call yesterday about acquiring the rest of the first floor of that building from Nicolay Bank primarily. And I'm like, wow, how does that play into that building not being there? We all want a public market, but I know that's not the right place. I'm not the seller of the first floor space. Nicolay Bank is. The end of the year brings the option, and I don't know that any of this is proprietary. There's a tenant in there, call them a church, that has an option to purchase at the end of the year. And I happen to have worked on that with their finance committee, and they put a lot of tenant improvement dollars in out of their own pockets. It's not likely that a tenant puts a lot of dollars in and doesn't execute their option to purchase and just lets a short-term lease expire and watches $1 million of, you know, these are, call it just general round numbers of tenant improvements go away.
So I guess with
Part of the, so to answer your question, we will move forward. We think that there should be some level of commitment to move towards what everybody wants.
Okay.
I think Terrence said that very well too. It's all in. That's what everybody's vision is down. That's how you get there.
And I don't argue with that at all, Paul, on what everybody wants, but as you just walked through, I would be really uncomfortable committing the city to take them out in a given time frame, because if I'm the owner of whatever that space is, great, time's ticking, price is going higher. City, you're committed, it's in your contract, public record. So I would be really uncomfortable, binding the city to that in agreement unless there was something that stated a cap.
And I'm not trying to convolute the matter, I think I could offer a little bit of insight, because we've been down this path before.
Yep.
And then, the Nicolay Bay Lake changed, and
Yep.
my understanding is that it's very possible that Nicolay Bank may not own any of the space in the near term if some of the existing tenants on the first floor execute their options.
Mhm.
The purchase, which, that's just information, but it commits, you know those purchase prices are at least a minimum.
Yep.
And then you have to find an equitable solution
Yep.
to those groups, and those would be discussions that somebody like Kevin would initiate.
So with that, maybe phrase the question at, would you be okay is if instead, I mean, the initial timetable was to bring a recommendation to the RDA in October, if that recommendation didn't come until November or maybe December, because it's probably gonna take some time to
Sure.
really figure that out, is that still acceptable for you in terms of your interest in this proposal?
Yes.
Interest in the site? I'd have the same question, I mean,
I don't want to interrupt Paul.
sure. No, I think the question would be, instead of making a recommendation in October, this recommendation maybe doesn't come until November or December to figure out that piece, which, I mean, obviously is critical to your particular proposal as well.
Right, so I would just stand up so you can see.
Sure.
I would say that I just think it's so important. I think the focus shouldn't be on the developer. I think it's so important that the city get this right, really. I mean, this is a long, once this is like your one-shot deal. This is it. Got to get it right, take your time. We can do this whenever. We're flexible, we're here, we're not going anywhere. So get it right. I personally have good reason to believe that the timing is absolutely ideal for the city to acquire the Bay Lake building, not just because of the bank, but because of other reasons I won't go into. In the next 3 to 6 months, the opportunity may exist for you to acquire the building quite reasonably. Certainly the bank indicating their interest. There are also creative ways to approach this. Sit down, brainstorm with us. We've been down this path before. The bank, you could, instead of looking to acquire and pay them cash, they could make a donation of the space, valued at X, be valued more than what they might get in cash. That might have some very good economic reasons for them to donate their space to the city, plus getting CDA credits, right? Getting credits, whatever they want to do in the future. They have to do things like that to get these credits, to be able to merge, to be able to acquire, to be able to do things. And then there's the other owner. I think there's going to be an opportunity down the road here that you could acquire it. The value, it's not based upon who's in there, it's based upon the income, net income. So if the city does this, they would go get an appraisal. The appraisal, this has been done numerous times in other communities. Go get an appraisal based on a net income stream, and the rents aren't that high, and you look at the income stream, come up with a value. Maybe if out of the goodness of your heart as a city, you throw some $50 at the tenants for relocation costs to help them out, But city, we just did this process with the city. I bought the Middleton Center, the old Middleton Center in Madison, Middleton, and 6 buildings, and worked with the city in a partnership. And we went and acquired the property in a cooperative fashion. You can do condemnation, but we acquired it from the owner. And then we got some relocation assistance from the city, and we relocated all the tenants cooperatively. Worked out great. It wasn't a high price. You look at what is the market value for that building and the income stream for those tenants and the leases that are in place. So it doesn't matter, what the tenant improvements are. All of that technology and wiring is out of date, completely out of date. It's worthless, Any new building will have completely upgraded new technology, Cat 6, whatever. So all that has no value. So I think for very good reasons, now is the time to acquire that building. It wasn't 2 years ago, and it won't be 2 years from now. It'll be, the bank has an interest in getting out, and maybe the other owner might have an interest also for other reasons. The other owner, it's been public knowledge, has been selling some assets, to raise some capital for good reason. I won't get into, but there's certainly an opportunity, I think, coming up for the city that you want to take advantage of. And I would just hate to see you make a short-term decision. Don't be rushed by us. We'll still be here. Let's do the right thing for Green Bay.
All right, so I would say, so long as both developers, it seems, would still be in play in terms of the time sensitivity of this, and I think the nature of this committee feeling not comfortable making decisions until we have some of those answers. I would just recommend, I mean, I guess.
We'll cancel the Monday meeting.
Correct, well, I'm just thinking like, we don't have our city attorney here, is that the hold or the table is the proper motion for, I guess we're just hold till the next meeting, and just, we're not gonna have a next meeting date at this time. If you wanna report out at RDA, I mean, we could put that on there and just say, here's what we're looking at, and it's a bigger question, and I would say that's, the recommendation right now is to figure out how this plays into it, and an exit strategy, before we make a decision on this. I mean, I think what we've seen is, look, I mean, there's, viable proposals for this site, which we've always talked about. We'll never take down the Bay Lake building until we can build something on its place or in the Adams Street lot. I think we've got two examples here of, okay, we can, but how we take that down or when we take it down obviously impacts both of these, and ultimately what does get built there.
So you want the motion to be to hold until the next meeting?
Yeah, how to do that.
Or until staff has additional information.
Yeah, I mean, and I would just maybe, if you want to bring that back to the RDA, and if RDA feels the same way, then we'll continue to work on that, and if RDA says, or, you know what I mean? But I think your recommendation would carry some weight about knowing all the pieces of it and doing it, right? So,
We just need to learn the word for the motion, so we can come to this.
Okay, how about we try this? Well, we'll see if we get a second. I would suggest that we make a motion to provide an update from this meeting at the next RDA meeting, just about write proposals and what we've heard. And have an update on any additional information that's been gained by staff in regard to Shriver's green space and the Bay Lake thing.
And I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion clear. I think with that said, we are ready to adjourn the meeting, and if I had the gavel, which I've not been trusted with yet, I would. So, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone, and to both the developers, thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you
We appreciate all the
both.
work that you're doing.